They thought they could break me by making me serve drinks at their engagement party. They thought I would bow my head, take the tray, and swallow whatever pride I had left. But when I walked in carrying the child they were certain had died, the room forgot how to breathe. And the man who once wore my ring dropped to his knees like the floor had been pulled out from under him. Yeah, that happened. And if you've ever been told you weren't enough, you know exactly how electric a moment like that feels, how quiet the air gets when truth finally stands up for itself. Let me back up a sec. The invitation showed up on a Tuesday, cream paper, gold foil, the kind of stationery that smells like money and old oak panels, and it wasn't an invitation to attend. It was a booking, Camille Rivers Catering. Requested to serve Vincent Blackwood and Isabella Chun on the occasion of their perfect new beginning. Not our presence, our services. 3 years since I walked out of that same mansion with a shaking body and a paper bag of prescriptions. 3 years since Margaret Blackwood looked past my face and called me fragile like it was a diagnosis. Vincent wasn't there. He was upstairs toasting his freedom to a room of men who never learned how to hold a crying woman. And I was in the NICU humming the same lullaby to a 2-pound warrior I named Lou. Not because the moon stayed with me when no one else did. They told me she might not make it, then told me she might make it, but never walk. Then told me to prepare myself for the long list of things she would never do. And every time I nodded and said, "All right, write it down, so I can set it on fire later." I left that house with my sister Denise's arm around my shoulders and a hospital bracelet still on my wrist. We slept on her couch. We built a business off borrowed ovens and word of mouth. And when I couldn't afford a sitter, I tested recipes with Luna in a bassinet beside the mixer, her little fingers batting flour dust like snow. There were months the cards maxed out and the landlord got too familiar with my voicemail. Months I plated hors d'oeuvres with one hand while the other rocked a stroller with my foot. Months I swallowed the story of how I became a mother, because speaking it out loud might break what I was trying so hard to keep whole. So when that invitation came, Denise said, "Don't go." Said it's a setup, said Margaret wants theater, and she's cast you as the tragic understudy who never got her spotlight. I set the card down, watched how the gold letters caught the light, and felt something inside me settle into place. They didn't know me anymore, not the version who would show up to be humiliated, not the woman who would apologize for surviving. I texted Denise, "I'm going." She sent back 3 words, "Then we're going." The night arrived, all glitter and cameras, a driveway paved in imported stone, a valet line of cars that looked like they ate other cars for breakfast. Inside, the walls still held our wedding photos, swapped out for landscapes now, but the faint squares remained. Paler patches where our smiles used to live. Isabella met me at the door in champagne silk and a practiced smirk, and she said, "The help is here," like she'd been waiting all week to savor those 4 words. I gave her the smile I reserve for clients who'll tip well but sleep badly, and said, "Don't worry about me. I'm exactly where I need to be." The old staff was still there, Rosa from housekeeping, who taught me how to get red wine out of linen, brushed my wrist in passing, and slipped a folded napkin into my palm, and inside it a silver locket I'd thought I'd lost. The one with a picture from our honeymoon and a second space that sat empty for a someday child. "Found it years ago, me Nina," she whispered. "Thought you might want it tonight." A tiny kindness in a hostile country, a reminder that not everyone in that house chose cruelty. The room itself buzzed like a hive, board members, socialites. A senator's wife who once said my earrings were spirited, and above it all Margaret's voice, lacquered and loud, introducing me as Vincent's first mistake. People laugh the way you do when you're scared of the host. Vincent appeared from the other side of the room, and for a second the memory of how he used to look at me tried to pull me under. He'd aged into his father's face, success carved into his jaw and regret pooled behind his eyes, and he said my name softly, like you say a word you think might hurt your mouth. "I never wanted," he began. "Don't you dare rewrite history," I thought, and out loud I said, "You let it happen," while aligning canapes into neat little rows that looked like control. He flinched, and the room moved on without us. Isabella made a show of knocking a glass into my apron. "Oops," and later tapped her crystal with a fork to announce the headline they were expecting. A cheer rose up. Champagne fountains sparkled. Margaret clapped like a child at a parade. My phone vibrated. "We're outside. Is it time?" And the calm that washed through me felt like the deep breath before the first step of a long-dreamed-of walk. Yes, I typed. Bring her in. I told the line cook I needed air. Slipped through the service hall that still smelled faintly of the vanilla I spilled on a different life, and stepped into the night where Denise's car idled under the portico lights. She turned, worry bright in her eyes, and then she smiled the way only sisters know how to, all pride and please go get them. In the back seat, Luna kicked her heels against the car seat, curls wild, eyes wide. The Blackwood brown you can't buy or fake. Hey, baby girl, I whispered, buckling her into my arms. Ready to meet some people who need to learn your name? Mama, she said, and the last of my fear unclenched. We didn't sneak. We walked straight through the front doors. Conversations thinned and then stopped. The resemblance hit them like a wave, his eyes, his mother's chin, that unmistakable nose stamped into portraits up the staircase. I moved to the center of the room, felt the music stumble and stall, watched 3 different men try to decide whether to step forward or step out of the way. Vincent's glass fell from his hand and shattered, a bright, violent sound that announced the world had changed. That's impossible, he said, and it wasn't the words so much as the way he said it. Childlike, like someone who just learned the sky could lie. They said no, I said, and the whole house leaned in. They said what was easiest to say. I went into labor at 28 weeks, while you were toasting new beginnings. She lived. She fought. I stayed. The quiet that followed was total, the kind that amplifies the smallest real thing, and Luna chose that moment to tug my necklace and giggle. The sound bright and ordinary and undeniable. Vincent took a step, then another, hands lifting and falling like he wasn't sure if he had permission to use them. Tears cut clean tracks down his face. Please, he said, and it was both a question and a confession. Please let me. Her name is Luna, I said, stroking her hair. She spent 4 months in the NICU. I sold everything I had to keep the monitors beeping and the lights on. I built a company around nap schedules. I learned to be 2 people at once, chef and mother, because the father she deserved chose not to be there. He crumpled into a chair like the strings holding him up had finally snapped. Margaret recovered first, survival humming behind her eyes. Well, she said, palms floating, voice sweetened to the point of rot. This changes everything. Of course it does. Family is family. And we'll do right by the child. She meant money, lawyers, bloodline, a new narrative with the same director. No, I said, and it wasn't loud, it was final. Luna already has what she needs. She has a mother who won't barter her life for access to a surname. Isabella's face went red the way champagne stains a napkin, and the diamond she'd been flashing all night skittered across the marble at Vincent's feet. I'm not staying for this, she snapped, and for the first time her voice cracked. She left a comet trail of perfume and fury, and the door closed with a satisfying hush. Somewhere behind me, Rosa made the sign of the cross, and I felt the room tilt again, this time toward me. What can I do? Vincent asked, empty hands open. How do I make this right? I looked at the man I once built a life around, and then at the girl who built me back. You can't fix the past, I said. You can choose different in the future, but that choice isn't mine to grant. It'll be hers, when she's old enough to know what it means. He nodded, wrecked. And for a second, I almost reached for him out of muscle memory. But love that refuses to protect you isn't love, it's nostalgia. I shifted Luna on my hip, felt the weight of her, the anchor and the sail, and I turned toward the door. Some things you can buy back, Margaret, I said, not bothering to look for her face in the crowd. Time and trust are not on that list. We stepped into the night as a breeze lifted the white ribbons strung along the columns. The fountain whispered the same song it had on happier days. And Luna pressed her palm to my cheek like she knew I needed grounding. In the reflection on the glass, I saw a woman who didn't come to win a scene. She came to tell the truth and leave standing. Out on the driveway, Denise got out of the car and wrapped us both in a hug that smelled like coffee and clean laundry, and we laughed. The kind that bubbles up when you've carried a boulder and finally set it down. Behind us, someone opened the door and stopped, and for a heartbeat I thought it would be Vincent, but it was Rosa, holding up the locket so it flashed under the porch light. Para la Nina, she whispered, and pressed it into my hand. I snapped it open, my honeymoon photo on one side. Luna's NICU bracelet curled on the other, a circle finally closed. Was it a victory? It felt like one, not because anyone lost, but because the lie did. That's the quiet kind of justice I believe in now. The kind that doesn't need to scream, just stands in a room and breathes until everyone else has to adjust. Maybe Vincent will spend the rest of his life stepping into the father he couldn't be when it mattered. Maybe he won't. Maybe Margaret will learn that bloodline is a story older than money. Maybe she'll double down. Maybe Isabella will build a life that isn't about winning so much as belonging. The camera pulls back here. White ribbons shivering, city lights blinking. A little girl's head heavy on her mother's shoulder. And the question of what happens next lingers like the last note of a song you can't quite stop hearing. If this story made you feel anything about right and wrong, about the shape of justice and who gets to draw it, tell me in the comments where you stand. Should a man who failed you be allowed a second chance if he's willing to do the work, or are some doors meant to stay closed? Share your take. Share your own stories. And if you believe in the kind of truth that changes rooms, pass this along to someone who needs a reason to keep going.